Hello children, I am your Sangeeta ma'am. Today we are again back with our lesson number 2, First World War and Russian Revolution Part 2. Last session we had studied about the colonization in Asia and Africa and the factors that caused First World War. Now just a short glance in our introduction part. The First World War. In the First World War, 24 nations supported the Allied nations and 4 nations supported the Axis nations. Now, first of all, you need to understand what are Allied nations. Allied nations means a group of nations that have friendly relations. So, 24 nations had supported in the Allied nations. There was a group of nations, they were having friendly relations. And 4 nations supported the Axis nation. Now Axis means the ones which oppose the other nation. So Allied were friendly ones and Axis were the ones who opposed these Allied nations. Initially, Germany made noteworthy victories in Europe. So in the beginning, Germany made a very good victory in Europe. It had won many wars. It ruined the French army. So it ruined the French army means Germany had ruined the French army. It fought many submarine wars and destroyed the ships of the Allied nations. So Germany had fought many submarine wars. With the help of submarine, they had a war and it had destroyed the ships of the Allied nations. Germany had destroyed many ships. Many soldiers and civilians died because of tanks and poisonous gas. So during the war, you know that group of soldiers come together and they fight. So they died because of the tanks and poisonous gas that were there in the tanks. In 1917, the Russian Revolution started. So Russia withdrew from the war. So Russian Revolution had started in 1917. So because of this, Russia withdrew from the war. Withdrew means it just moved out from the war. Germany was very strong at this time. So during this time, Germany was very strong. It managed to drown an American steamer, Lusitania, in which 147 American soldiers died. So now Germany managed to drown. So it managed to drown American steamer. What was the name? Lusitania. In this steamer there were 147 American soldiers and they died because the steamer drowned. Drown means डूब जाना. Okay. Consequently, America joined the Allied nations for the war in April 1917. So because of this, now America joined Allied nations. With that, countries like Panama, Greece, Cuba, China and Siam joined the Allied nations. So these were the countries that joined Allied nations. Thus the Allied nations became stronger. Yes, of course, because many nations were coming together. So as they were joining, it became more and more stronger. German army could not withstand the American troops. Now Germany was not able to compete with American troops. American troops means American soldiers. The whole position of the war changed. So it changed full scenario of the war. Bulgaria in September 1918, Turkey and Austria in October 1918 joined the Allied nations. Now again, Bulgaria, Turkey and Austria also joined Allied nations, that is friendly nation. The German leader Kaiser abdicated his position and ran away. Now here the German leader, his name was Kaiser. He ran away. Now abdicated means resigned. He resigned and he ran away. Germany surrendered to Allied nations. Now Germany had to surrender to Allied nations because the leader had ran away and signed a ceasefire treaty. So Germany had to sign a treaty called ceasefire. Ceasefire means to stop firing. That treaty was supposed to be signed by Germany. You can call the ceasefire treaty as peace treaty also. And the war came to an end. So like this, the war came to an end because the leader ran away and Germany had to surrender to the Allied nations. and it had to sign ceasefire treaty. Now let us see what are the effects of First World War. What are the immediate effects? What were the sudden effect that had caused? Now first we have over here is destruction of men and material. Approximately 6.5 crore people took part in the war. At least 1 crore died, about 2 crore were injured, and about 70 lakhs were rendered permanently handicapped. So it is said over here that 6.5 crore people took part in this war. So as you know, whenever there is any war, of course there will be destruction. So here also it is said that 1 crore people died and 2 crore were injured. Injured means they got hurt. And 70 lakhs were rendered permanently handicapped. Permanently handicapped means they might have lost their hand, they might have lost their leg. So they got handicapped. So 70 lakhs were handicapped. More number of people died because of starvation. Now as you know, whenever there is destruction or whenever there is war, so of course you will face difficulty with the food products. So many people died of starvation. Starvation means it's a stage where when you don't get food, you feel hungry, and because of hunger, when they die, it is called as starvation. And other forms of killings and epidemics. And other forms of killings were there, and epidemics that broke out. Epidemics means whenever there is a war, scenario will change, atmosphere will change, so many problems will take place in human body. So because of that also, people had died. The total war expenditure was quite high. So war is not a simple thing. Chalo, we feel we want to take a fight, so let us go and have fight. It's not so. For that, a huge amount has to be spent. So the total war expenditure was quite high. Now secondly we have is social change. How this First World War created a social change. During the war, since majority of the men of all nations were on the war front, women shouldered the responsibility of the family and occupation. So of course when the war takes place, majority of men, they are always in the war front, they are always standing in front for the fight. So who has to take up the responsibility then? The family, and what they will eat, all these things they have to take care. So women shouldered the responsibility of the family and occupation. They stepped out of their homes and successfully took over the responsibility in different professional fields. So women's were forced, you can say, in a different way to come out of their home and to take up responsibility in different professionals, because they have to take care of their family so that they can live happily. Now when men are out in the war, so of course who has to take care? That is, women have to take care. The self-confidence of their being equivalent to men enhanced. So they felt that they are equal to men. So that self-confidence was enhanced, was inherited in them. Consequently, the demand for women to exercise their franchise was raised. So now, demand for women to exercise their franchise, their way, their demand was raised. During the war, the production of things of basic necessities had reduced. So whenever there is war, more concentration is towards that war only. So what happened? The basic necessity things were not in appropriate quantity, that had got reduced. So problems like scarcity, unemployment. Scarcity means not to have in appropriate amount. Scarcity, unemployment, that is not to get job. Starvation, that is die because of hunger or a situation where there is no food, you can say. Strikes, lockouts, etc. raised their heads. So these all problems had raised during after First World War. People suffered a lot and children's condition was pathetic. So children also, their condition was also very bad. It was very heartbreaking. People also suffered a lot because they were not getting proper food, they were not having employment, there were strikes everywhere, so they were not getting the things that they required. And so this was a chance that women got to develop themselves, and they felt that they are equivalent to men. Now next we have is the Treaty of Versailles. Now With the name itself, you will be feeling now what is this Versailles? Versailles, it's a place, it's the name of a city that is near Paris, and the treaty was signed over here, so it is known as the Treaty of Versailles, June 1919. At the end of the First World War, the unconditional surrender of Germany in front of the Allied nations brought an end to the war. So at the end of First World, as soon as the First World War got over, there was unconditional surrender. Unconditional means without any condition. There was a surrender of Germany in front of Allied nations. So this brought an end to the war. Because of this, the war got over. Then the Allied nations undertook the peace process in Paris, in which some 58 commissions were formed and 145 sessions were organized. So now when the Germany surrendered to Allied nations, that time Allied nations undertook the peace process. This peace process was undertaken in Paris. In this peace process, 58 commissions were formed. Commissions means groups, or you can say committees were formed. 58 commissions were formed and 145 sessions were organized. Sessions means meetings were arranged. The agreement made with Germany during the Paris peace process was made in the Mirror Palace at Versailles. So very important, children, it can be asked, where was Paris peace process made? So your answer will be, it was made in the Mirror Palace at Versailles. So this agreement was made in Versailles, that is in Paris, near Paris. Thus it came to be known as Versailles Treaty. That's why it is known as Versailles Treaty. There were 4 provisions in the Treaty of Versailles. So now here, how many provisions were there? How many conditions they had fulfilled over there? 4 conditions or 4 provisions were made. Regional arrangement, how to arrange regions. Reduction in troops and disarmament, how they will reduce these troops and how they will reduce the use of armaments, that is weapons. The arrangement of distribution of gains at the end of the war and war fine. So how they will distribute the benefit that they got out of war and the war fine, how they will distribute it, that was decided over here, and other provisions. The American President Woodrow Wilson, British Prime Minister Lord George, French President Clemenceau, and Italian President Orlando played an important role in this treaty. So these 4 people played a very important role. Germany was found responsible for the war. So who was found responsible for the war? Germany, because Germany only wanted to have a top priority or wanted to capture all the market. A war fine of 6.5 billion pound was imposed on Germany. So this also can be asked. What was the war fine that was imposed on Germany? That is 6.5 billion pound. It had to give away the Ruhr region to France. So Germany was supposed to give away its Ruhr region. This Ruhr region was belonging to Germany, that Germany was supposed to give it to France. Its Rhine River had to be opened for international routes. So Rhine River was supposed to be opened by Germany for the international sea route. The Rhineland region on French border was disallowed, was not allowed for being a fortress, as well as this mineral rich was given away to France for 15 years. So this region was given away to France for 15 years because it had it was mineral rich region, so it was given to France for 15 years. Most of the German organizations were confiscated. So German organizations were taken away. Alsace and Lorraine were to be returned to France. So these 2 were also supposed to be returned to France. Besides this, Germany was to give to France and other allied nations a large quantity of coal and iron. So besides giving some of the regions to France and other nations, it was supposed to give away a good quantity of coal as well as iron annually as the benefits of war. So that was a benefit of war that was supposed to be given to other allied nations and France. What was supposed to be given? Coal and iron. Germany was made to sign these terms and conditions on gunpoint. So it was supposed to be signed this treaty on gunpoint. Gunpoint, that means forcibly they asked Germany to sign this treaty. Because of which there was bitterness. Bitterness means they were not happy. And desperation amongst Germans. Desperation means there was a type of painful situation amongst Germans. Consequently, the German economy failed miserably. So because of this, German economy was failed very badly. Last we have is just have a glance of this. This type of treaty was signed by Germany. Okay. Now we have long-term effects. Now what were the long-term effects? There was a feeling of revenge in signing the treaty with the nations that were defeated in the wars. Of course, as we discussed right now, the Treaty of Versailles is how some of the regions were given to allied nations, France, and how the Rhine River and all was given away or was opened. So this way the countries that failed in the war and how they were signing the treaty. So because of this, there was a type of revenge type of feeling. Revenge, you can say, feeling like tit for tat. Like when we are small kids, एक ने मारा तो हम दूसरा भी मारता है. Like if one is doing something, the same thing you want to do. That is, feeling of revenge was there. Peace could not be established with the treaty. So they could not establish any peace with this treaty because the winning countries used to take away from the losing countries. So peace could not be established. Next is Socialist Russia was not given a place in the League of Nations. Russia was not given any place in this League of Nations. America did not join the League of Nations. Now, first of all, what is League of Nations? League of Nations is an organization to maintain world peace. So, America did not join this organization, that is League of Nations. That's why it can be said that the reason for the Second World War was in the peace process of the First World War itself. So it is said that while maintaining the First World War, they tried to have some peace process, but this peace process was only the reason for the Second World War. They couldn't establish peace with any of this process. So that's all for today. We'll meet in the next session with Russian Revolution.